Welcome, everybody. This is Scott Paton of Power Podcasters. Really excited to have you with us, and I'm delighted to introduce a very, very special guest today. He is a mobile journalist instructor. Actually, he's a mobile video expert, and he's a journalism professor and documentary filmmaker who has taught thousands of broadcast field reporters how to make incredible videos with mobile gear. He's more than 4,000 students in his online courses, and he's gone from designing the world's first mobile-first newsroom in Georgia to training Egyptian journalists on documentary film. He's fully embraced the idea of video storytelling going mobile no matter the locale. And I just think this is just such a great opportunity for people who love to podcast, because if nothing else, we're extremely mobile. But there's nobody really teaching us, how to do it more professionally. So he's the founder of the Smart Film School, bringing high-quality video training to every smartphone. He's taught visual storytelling and mobile multimedia at the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University and at the International Academy of Journalism. He's developed a smartphone reporting training, technology, and workflows used by hundreds of Radio Free Europe broadcast reporters and correspondents. Since 2005, he's taught thousands of journalists around the globe the latest techniques in video journalism, visual storytelling, editorial filmmaking, and smartphone multimedia. He's the author of A Field Guide for Mobile Journalism and a former editor of the Chicago Tribune and Chicago Times. And he lives in Berlin, Germany, which is really exciting. I want to find out how he got from Chicago to Berlin. So welcome, Robb Montgomery. How you doing, Robb?
Hi, thanks. Wow, I got to shorten that resume a little bit. That's a lot for anyone to have to read. I do have like a 3-line brief there. Well, I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to get into all the things that you did. I just thought it was absolutely amazing.
It's been quite a journey. In fact, I just wrote that into an essay that's going to be part of an ebook that the presenters were all asked to contribute to for the first mobile journalism conference. You know what Comic-Con is, right?
Yes.
Well, this is Comic-Con for mobile journalists, and it's happening next month in Dublin, Ireland. And so it's kind of a seminal moment here in, as you said, the mobile journalism revolution. And so, yeah, for me, it's been 10 years.
Wow, that's great. I was just thinking, in terms of podcasting, it's coming up to the 10th anniversary of the first time I ever taught how to podcast, which is just amazing to me. The time has flown, and it kind of was hot, and then nobody talked about it, and then Serial came along, and everybody's talking about it, and Apple's putting podcasts on phones, so we have... on cars, so all of a sudden it's just opened up this whole new world for people.
Yeah, I think Americans especially live in their cars, so it's quite literally a captive audience. So these things sometimes come and go. Sometimes they mutate a little bit. Things they get prematurely declared dead. I remember when podcasting was hot, when I was still at the Chicago Sun-Times, I was developing the plans there for our reporters to produce podcasts. We did some prototypes, and at the same time I was doing my own podcast, and then of course I was following this video track as well and doing a lot of video journalism, and I just switched over at that point. Vlogging, as it was, yes. Video podcasting. You had Amanda Barrett or whatever her name was, and doing Amanda Congdon doing crazy things in just short form video, low budget, and it just it's an exciting way to tell stories, to do interviews, and to share those with audiences. I love it.
Yeah, cool. So for someone who's just starting out, because most of my students usually are, what are some of the pieces of equipment you need to do mobile journalism?
Yeah, the basic thing you need is a modern phone, one that has a pretty good camera on it. The microphones are getting better, but of course, if you're a podcaster and you love audio, the first thing you want to do is find an upgrade for that. Now,
right.
I could talk about gear, but I want to save your readers some time and just say I've got a whole long list of gear and different configurations, but depending on your particular needs or your budget, at my website or at the smartfilmschool.com, you'll see a tab there for gear. Just click on that, and each of the pictures is an interactive image, and it has a hot link right to the description of that piece. So you can see if you've got $100 and you want to upgrade your phone into doing better quality audio, better quality video, there's a solution for you. If you've got a little more money, one of the things I really love to look at and recommend is, if you say you've got a professional microphone, one with the 3 pins, the XLR connection, there are interfaces that will give you a preamp and an analog to digital converter and go right into the digital side of the phone. So that
wow,
maybe less than $200. It's amazing for a preamp and a converter to cost that, and that just puts you right into the broadcast quality realm instantly. So that's pretty amazing that you can attach that to your phone and get super great audio.
So when you said that, I had a picture in my mind, and I don't have my phone close by, of holding my phone and then having this massive preamp.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming these are relatively small pieces of equipment.
Here it is. I'm actually using it on this podcast, and it's the reason I love this. It's made by IK Multimedia. Now these guys make stuff for musicians, so it's really meant for musicians. But why not steal it and use it for mobile journalism? You can change the cable and go right into your laptop, like I'm doing right now for this podcast, or you can switch the cable and go to your phone. And it just runs off a 9-volt battery, and it runs forever. And it'll power a condenser microphone.
Oh, nice.
I know, right? So I'm used to, I've got a nice $3,000 Joe Meek preamp over here for, when I was doing my real serious audio production stuff. I don't need it. I don't plug it in anymore. This is the stuff I use. I've got really nice Sony video cameras, HD to tape. I don't use them anymore. I've got a nice DSLR. I use it occasionally, but it's still kind of a pain to do video. But there are things that it can do that a mobile phone can't do. So it's kind of where you are on the spectrum when you look at like what an iPhone 6 Plus does. For me, this is the go-to camera, but it's also a bridge for a lot of professional journalists. Like this is the point of entry. You equip every reporter, you get them trained, you get them that basic kit, and they can file stuff as an adjunct to your other more expensive gear and your better teams, and that's where it fits in.
Right.
But for the sole producer, yeah, you've got it all in your hand, really.
Pretty cool. So what are some of the things that you tell your students when they're just starting out? So I've just walked in the door, so to speak, and I want to be a journalist, and I really don't know anything. So what are some of the things that you start people off with?
Well, I mean, to talk about why you want to be a journalist, I mean, it's what stories do you want to tell? What stories are important to you? What issues are important to you? What people matter to you? What does it mean to your community, your kids, your future, their future? So really, you get drawn into journalism because you have a story that needs to be told, and then it's learning how to tell it and learning the ways to telling it better. And video is to do it well is pretty challenging because you have to be a master of visual storytelling as well as audio storytelling, and you have to be able to balance different types of reporting that come together into a news package, and be pretty skilled at it. But you can get that training. You can work on each one of those elements one by one, and you don't have to wait until you can afford a better camera or a better laptop. You can start with your phone, which is dang exciting.
That really is. So the barrier to entry is low, and just get started and start practicing, and you're going to get better. And if you've got someone like yourself, if I have someone like you training me, then I'm going to get better faster, because when you have a mentor and someone with the experience, it sure helps, as opposed to making all those mistakes that we make as we learn.
Well, and even the mistakes in teaching it, because when you get now any one of my courses online, I mean, you're going to get something that's been pretty well refined, and it's been tested in pretty extreme conditions. I mean, I have taught this stuff literally the edge of the world, with reporters who are filing from places in Kyrgyzstan, for example, with Android phones that barely work, with cracked software, with languages that don't work, the whole 9 yards, and still have to work with, getting secure communications back to their newsroom because their governments are monitoring. I mean, so the lessons, I don't teach that stuff. I'm just saying in those environments, the lessons teach you back, and all that comes back into like, how can I really efficiently show you? You don't know how to build a visual story. How do I break it down into 10 steps, and so that you can take a class in an hour or two and really, really be led through it and feel like you know what's going on and that you can do it. And that's where my teaching has improved because of these experiences, and because the changes are coming so rapidly with mobile. The lessons you made last year or 2 years ago, they get outdated with the new iOS update. And as a teacher, that just keeps you fresh, yeah?
Right.
And your lessons have to be fresh. And so you're always just refining and iterating and finding a better way to teach that student how to do a visual story or a video story or a multimedia story with their phone, because they're just getting more and more powerful.
Cool. Yeah, the amount of change that's going on is absolutely phenomenal. So tell us a little bit about how, as a starting out journalist and sort of podcaster, how would you go about finding the people that you want to interview for your story? We'll assume we have something. Maybe it's a local story that we want to get into a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, those are the stories that are always going to resonate. And whatever the issue is in your community, in your neighborhood, in your school, there's a person behind it. There's someone who's willing to talk about it, or who knows something that can add to your report. And the difference usually between interviewing for video kind of reports and versus doing the kind of interviewing we're doing right now, this is more just classic radio or talk show interview. There's different techniques to getting people to talk and say the things that work into a video story, because they have to be able to tell you their thoughts in a complete sentence. You can't deal with fragments, yes or no's, or or responses that come with only a beginning or an ending. I need to kind of be complete. And what you just did right there was an example of how you get that kind of answer, because you didn't ask me a question, you gave me a command. You said, tell me about. And that's what I teach. Yeah.
Oh, really?
You may not be consciously aware of it, but that's a classic broadcaster technique. Is that, I've got a list of 20 questions in one of my courses. When we get to interviewing, it's like, by the way, did you know that most broadcasters actually do not ask questions? They give you commands. They just sound like questions.
I had no idea.
Well, you instinctively have picked up on it, because that is the key. Basically, the way that you invited me to tell me something meant that the interview subject, had to now form a script subconsciously and almost instantaneously in my head and tell you a story. So that's the real key, is that you may think you have stories to tell, but one of the keys to unlocking this is other people have stories to tell. Your role in that situation at that moment is to get those people to tell that piece of the story in ways that you can use it in a multimedia report or a video.
Right. Oh, interesting. So I know where I got that. I didn't know what I was doing. It was so totally unconscious. But what I do is I listen to talk radio and sports radio, because I'm interested in my local hockey team, as I'm driving around. So instead of listening, I'll listen to music, but majority of what I do is I listen to either podcasts or the local radio. And the reason I want to listen to the local radio is I'm really curious as to how they segue from topic to topic, or how they start their show, or how they end their show, or how they break for a commercial, and then of course they're always interviewing somebody. So then I'm watching them, how they do that, and then I've obviously modeled some of that.
Absolutely, and just what you did there is like letting the other person finish before you speak, that takes practice, because your natural human instinct is to affirm and confirm. Yeah. Well, when you're actually doing, real production, there's no magic, Adobe tool that will just remove your voice and keep the person's voice you want to keep. As you know, there's no way to do it. So you have to learn how to use nonverbal communication and nod and use body language and wait for the pause. You need that extra half second. And then what do you do if somebody just keeps on and on and on and on and on and on? What's the classic way that your favorite radio announcer or host, how do they redirect? How do they get back control? Have you picked up any of those techniques?
The only one that comes to mind is they put the guy on hold.
Oh my God! There's a better way. There's a better way.
So I've listened to some guys, call-ins in particular, the guy just gets on a rant, and the poor announcer or host can't get a word in edgewise, so all of a sudden the guy shuts up, and then he says, and the announcer says, I just put you on hold because you've made your point, you had a good run, now it's time for me to talk.
Yeah, I've heard announcers or hosts do that too. I think there's often a better way, and this is a good story I'll tell you, because I show this example. I have a recording of it. My cousin is a marketing executive in London, and she sometimes gets invited as a media person onto talk shows. And she was on a radio show, and the host and her, and they've had a few of these before. But at one point, my cousin just goes on and on and on, and she just like doesn't take a breath. And what the host does, it's 3 words. You know what the host does to
I want to know.
If I may. Isn't that a very polite way to just say, shut up and let me talk, and let's get you back on track?
Right.
So she said, so if I may, could we go back to that one thing? And see, it's usually followed up by a redirect. So the if I may, but that works for a live situation like what you're talking about in live radio, talk radio, talk shows. The host is always, I'm sure, fearful of especially powerfully minded guests who are used to pontificating, getting the show hijacked. So if you really watch the good ones, they'll use it, if I may, or that sounds like a really good point, but what I really would like to go, in a polite way and in an economy of time, they'll shut that person up and they'll bring it back.
Right. So that's one of the problems that we have with this show right now, and these types of shows, and with podcasting when you're doing an interview, because as the executive producer, I can go on forever and ever. It's not like I've got someone saying, we got to go for commercial break, or it's the top of the hour, the show's over. And I've had a couple, this is really great stuff that you're sharing, Rob, because I've had times where I've had people who are speakers, like they get on stage and they talk for an hour without taking a breath, or they have this really interesting thing that they're just totally focused on, and nobody will ever listen to them. So all of a sudden they have someone who will listen, and they just blah everything. And those 2 types of people I find really challenging to do an interview with, because I tell them, I know, like from experience, I know that's the type of person that person is, and I say, you have to take a breath. You have to let me get a question in. This is a conversation, not a monologue. And they all go, yeah. And then they just everything for an hour. It would be hours if you let them, right? So this is really, really good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope. Now, coming back to video, if you're going to be doing that with your mobile and doing a video interview, what's going to happen if you do an if I may? Well, you're gonna have this interruption in your sound bite, because remember, the goal is to get a sound bite that's clean on both ends, with not your voice, and a complete thought in the middle there. Well, if you got an if I may there, you pretty much, unless there was a pause there, unless you were conscious enough to think, okay, that first thing they said, there was a breath, I can cut that. But if you can't, you're gonna have to basically ask the question again, and you're going to have to do it in a way that doesn't insult them, keeps the flow of the interview going, and you're just going to have to kind of improvise on the fly and say, that thing we were just talking about before, could we come back to that? And that's just one way to do it. That's the way I've seen a professional TV reporter of mine do it, Carol Marin in Chicago. And when that happens and you need to come back, you can just say, that thing we were just talking about earlier, could you just tell me a little bit more how that started? Again, it's not a question. It just sounded like a question.
right? Command. Well, somebody has to be in control, and somebody has to say, "This is what I want," and then work out how you get it, right?
Right, and the other thing that commonly happens when I'm training reporters, and in every one of my workshops, you go out in the streets. I show you something, and then we gear up, and I march you outside, and you go do it. And you, at first, you're going to be doing it to your colleagues, right? To practice some of these basics, and then in the next day or in the next session, you're going to have to go on and do it with strangers, and that's what journalism is. You got to go out and meet strangers and convince them and get their trust and get them on camera and get a good soundbite. And I've done this in Russia, and some guys just reach for that microphone like it's a karaoke, and they're just used to taking it, and not just Russia. I mean, all over the world, there's strong people who, when the microphones, and it comes to them, they're used to grabbing the mic and lecturing, right? Well, you lose control of the interview when that happens. So,
very cool.
Another thing, yeah, you can't interrupt them at that point.
Right. So, when you're teaching people about journalism, I think I just picked up on a distinction between what journalism is versus what I've been doing. So I tend to just do these like Hangouts or Skype interviews, and we chat back and forth, and I'll chop the hiss at the beginning and the hiss at the end off, and I'll, if there's a part in the middle where it was really screwed up, I might edit that out, but it got mostly to the point where I don't do a lot of cutting back and forth and editing. Now, that's not the case when you're really talking about video journalism, because what I'm hearing you say is you might interview somebody for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and only use 30 seconds of that in the finished piece.
I'm going to usually walk up to a person with one question. I think it's another thing is like you need to do a lot of prep for interviews, but a lot of it is technical prep, because by the time it comes to when you've got to have that trust bubble and you never take and break eye contact with the person you're interviewing, you can't be looking down to a notepad with 20 questions and say, well, that Bill, you better know what you're going to ask, and you better be able to listen mainly to what their response is and be able to improvise a question that nips right at the end of it. Maybe you didn't get what you want, or maybe what they said was more interesting than what you had written down in your question, and you need to stay in that moment with them for as long as it takes to get the sound bites that satisfy you. Now, really good, you can do that in a couple minutes, but in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, no, I never do that unless I'm really going to just do a long interview. When I know I'm going to be there for 30 minutes, but no interview subjects of mine, I'm talking with editors-in-chief and publishers, will give you that kind of time. So you always have to kind of say, hey, I just need a couple minutes of your time. Do you have 30 seconds? Just got one question. And once you open them up and they get your trust and everything's comfortable and you started, and it's rolling. And you just go as long until they kick you out. And then you're right, at the end, what you've got are a series of sound bites, but it may not be structured in the way that tells the story best. And that's one of the things that professional filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, professional broadcast news package, experts, producers know, is that the best way to tell the story is maybe not in the order of the sound bites that they were recorded. So you do need to go in and find those bites and see if they can be matched up and still be true to the essence of what they said, and doesn't misrepresent what they said. It's very ethical, put together.
Right.
But what do you do with those two pieces of video? Because if you have a piece of video where this soundbite and then it comes to this soundbite, their head's going to change, or the background will change slightly, and you'll notice it as a viewer, right? And that's called a jump cut. But if you close your eyes and just listen to the audio, it's really smooth, because they'll use 5 frames of crossfade in between. Really smooth.
Okay.
But what they also have to do is then show a picture story to cover the gap between those two sound bites. So this is really my favorite technique, is you never see me, you never hear me. I like to pretty much not do narration. I don't mind doing it. I think it's kind of a cop-out for a lot of stories. I like to do something called an observational narrative, and that is I like to be able to tell a story completely through pictures and through the sound bites I collect. And that's nice. Okay, that's like the tip of the mountain, but I love to do that because it just feels more cinematic. You have much more freedom with your visual sequences. They have to carry a lot more of the storytelling, and it does become a challenge to how well you do your interviews. It becomes the measure of how good of an interview you got, what your skills were like, what the responses were like. Did you get the kind of stuff? Were you listening well enough? You know, did you pick up on what they said? Did you realize that was a change? Do you have enough context to know that what they were saying was important? And then you can put that together. And some of my videos they're just like that. I've done a series of interviews over the last 8 years about the change in the journalism industry, not just in the U.S. but worldwide. And all those videos are pretty much their stories, but not just as a beginning and an end piece of video without any editing. No, they're all reconstructed. But they're reconstructed because that's the best way to tell that story. And that's a really fun exercise. I don't recommend everyone starting out to do that, but you can start to with those basic building blocks like we've been talking about, and do news packages. Yeah.
Cool. So a new term I've just learned in the last 6 months to a year is B-roll.
Yeah.
So do you incorporate, so as I was listening to you talk about the interviews and the snippet here and what was the word you used for it? Like this little bit of content here and this little bit of content here, and the head was
right. So you've got your interview subject, right? But you just don't want a talking head. And if you've got those different sound bites that audio-wise flow together, visually they're not. Plus they're going to be boring. It's just a talking head. So that's why you hear the term B-roll, but that's just a technical term, because the A-roll, you should be asking, what's the A-roll, Rob? If there's B-roll, there has to be A-roll.
What's A-roll, Rob?
So the A-roll is the interview responses.
Yes.
The A-roll is the camera A had a roll of film in it that was just trained on the interview subject. And the second camera, the B camera, had a roll of film in it that was used to make visual reporting, to make wide, medium, close-up shots of the environment. Wide, medium, close-up face, hands over the shoulder of the subject, okay, or a process of what they're doing, making coffee or driving a nail, right? So that's where A-roll and B-roll come in, and on the timeline editor, your A-roll is on the bottom and your B-roll pictures are on top. And usually the B-roll pictures are used to introduce a subject or a location, or to compress time between subjects and locations, or to bridge those gaps between the sound bites. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of where we get that term. But we just can't think of B-roll as just being, just general shots of anything. That's not good video. They have to really be connected to the story. The way you connect them to the story is that's how you start reporting your story. You don't start with a text. You may start with some ideas, some notes. You may have a reference text, and you may have a storyboard. But it all changes when you go out and start to report it. And so that's your reporter's notebook for a video story, is your camera. And to actually start with the B-roll.
Oh, you start with the B-roll.
That's the big tip. That's the big tip. That's the thing. And you start with the B-roll, and those pictures inform your story. And you start to maybe write some little notes that will form your script to go with those pictures, and might form questions for your interview. Then your interviews, you're going to ask. You're going to be referencing specific things that you had recorded with your camera, because then you can show those things when your subject talks about them. You've got pictures that match what they say.
Right.
Then you move on, right? And then when you come back and I know what my interview responses are. I know what my pictures are. Now I can start to write to my pictures a script. Remember, 3 words per second, normal pace of speech. If you go into any teleprompter of any newsroom that uses television cameras, they've got 3 words per line. So you can tell how long a script is by how many lines there are in it, because each line is 1 second long. It's really basic stuff, and this has not changed in 50 years.
Right. But us podcasters don't know that.
Right. I mean, what's changed is that this isn't a dumb camera. What we had before were dumb cameras. This is a smart camera, meaning it's connected.
Yes.
So now I can make a 30-second clip because I know how to do my visual reporting. I know I can do my voiceover right on my phone with my awesome little device. I can cut it, and I can even do A-roll, B-roll editing. That's still what we call it.
Yeah.
Even though it's digital, it's not two tape machines where you're cutting between. That's how you also had to do it. You had to take each of those A roll of film and B roll of film and manually switch, and then it became magnetic tape, and then it became digital. But the concepts are the same, even though we don't use tape machines anymore. The idea that we've got this one track of our interviews and we've got another track of our visual stories, and the script is written to the visuals, and the interview soundbite responses connect it, and then at the end you might have the traditional stand-up reporter, summarizing the story or saying, well, but the issue isn't over yet.
Right.
I'm Robb Montgomery for the Smart Film School.
Yeah,
and that's a news package.
Yeah, you've deconstructed it beautifully, because I was just thinking of a bank robbery. When you go to the bank robbery scene,
why were you thinking? Wait a second, if I may. Why were you thinking of a bank robbery?
I don't know. It just came up, but it was like, you don't go to a bank. If you were a reporter, I don't think I would. If I was a reporter, I don't think I would go to the scene and I would immediately grab someone and start asking about it. I'd be like taking some pictures or some video of everything going on, and because the police are busy, stopping the bank robbery. They don't really have time to talk to me, but when it's all done is when they're going to be saying this is what happened, because the story's not finished until that happens.
That video might be the last piece of video recorded, because you're right, the press conference might come later. But guess what? At the end of the day, it might be the first piece of video that a viewer sees.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, because that might be the way to open up in that story. Well, the police have reported that a bank robbery was happening. By the way, and then now you can show those shots of here's what it was like at the scene, and that drives your script. And then you've got your soundbite of the person you recorded. So the order in which the shots come, there's no real hard and fast rule. It's just whatever is going to tell that story as truthfully and as accurately and as compellingly as possible.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. Cool. Well, I'm really excited about your course. So,
thanks.
Mobile Reporting Video Journalism Quick Course. Tell us a little bit about it, and then we're going to have a link, because you've been very gracious on giving us a coupon for it, and I'll put it down there so everybody can get at it.
Take a look at that one. That's a really good quick course and introductory. I've got courses designed for journalism professionals. I can say professional. I've got courses for consumers. Like, you want to just tell a travel story and you want 10 cool ways to do it. I've got 10 projects for you. That's another course. So I'm making this course that I was talking about today about how to do a professional news video package, precisely for newsroom reporters around the world who are needing to be retrained, because there is a big demand for video. And the expectation from a consumer, it better be professional. But you don't have to be a professional. There's a course for you at the Smart Film School.
Great, cool. So tell us a little bit more about the Smart Film School.
Well, it started with this idea that I had a client called CCI Europe, and they run the content management systems for a lot of newspapers around the world. They were one of these cloud companies before we used the word cloud. And they're interested in sponsoring a series of, could you give us like 10 videos that kind of video lessons that show some of the basics of video production on an iPhone? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And so they gave me some seed money. And then it became the idea, because the idea was I was just going to turn over the videos to them, and they were going to put it on their internal servers for all their clients. And I was like, that's fine. I don't mind. But by the way, I want to own my own copyright, which every podcaster should know. Make sure you always own your own copyright for your pictures. You can license it to clients, and that's what I did. I just said, for that, you're not buying all the rights. You're just getting the replay rights for your exclusive group. And then it came the questions like, well, they turned it on to other projects, and then they never built a platform to host them. Yeah, and I didn't want to turn them out to YouTube necessarily. Because they're valuable, and I do this stuff for a living, so my intellectual property was something I wanted to share, but I wanted to do it in the right way. And then I discovered this platform called Udemy, and I just have been creating courses and lessons every day since October when this started. And the cool thing is you can take all those lessons on the smartphone. And when I found that solution, I was like, that's the way to go, because then I can make it affordable for students. I can make it into course packs for journalism instructors. I can make courses for the working pros who just need, working journalists. they might take my course, but they're probably just going to be looking for that one lesson that's going to solve their problem for the next day or the next 5 minutes. And that's the beauty of that system, because they always have the courses with them for life. They get all the refreshes, all the updates for life whenever they get a course. So, and you get discussion. So I just found that platform to be really perfect, and a better probably experience than me writing a book, which was what I had planned to do.
And being in video for so long, that would be the natural thing for you to do.
It's not that I couldn't write it. I'd already written a book on mobile journalism, and that was all about doing photo and multimedia and interactive images with your smartphone, and the stories you can tell with them. And then I promised everyone, I'm going to do a series, I'm going to do a video book, an audio podcasting book on it. And it all just became videos, because it just became so much more natural way to show and not only tell, and it also respected people's time, and it just became a really efficient way to teach.
Very, very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, Rob, I want to thank you very much. You've just given us some great information. And before we go, I had one question, because I understand Twitter is allowing video, or doing something with video now.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it. Let's end on that, and hopefully everyone's enjoying their commute listening to this. I did try to get a good microphone here, but the thing about Twitter video, it's just now rolled out to everyone, but I've had it for 2 weeks. I wasn't special. I didn't ask for special permission, but somehow I was first on the list, and all my friends at the BBC were really, and Radio Television Ireland, they were all like, when are we going to get it? But now you have it. You just have to make sure you're on iOS 8, and you need to download the update for the latest Twitter. And here's the thing. You can record a video clips and make a little video report up to 30 seconds long, and you can tweet it out. If you have a clip on your camera roll, you can cut it down to 30 seconds and tweet it out. It's fantastic. It's going to change. Wow. It's really going to change the way we're doing journalism. I already put some tutorials up on my blog for free, so you can find that at robbmontgomery.com as well. So I hope to see some video tweets from you guys, and I'm at Robb Montgomery. Let me know. I'd love to see them.
Great. Well, I'm going to be doing that for sure, so I'll let you know. So thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate you spending this time with us, and I'm sure all my students are going to love this. And so thank you once more.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. The links to his courses will be below, or when I edit it, there'll be a black screen with them on here. And really highly recommend that you take them if you want to get a little more professional in your videos and telling the stories. I really think that's very important. So thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.